Welcome to the Nonprofits for our third segment this week in our extra special Halloween week of the Nonprofits. We see two old enemies, the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church, playing nice together. Jonathan Roudabush, please give us some details of these uncommon bedfellows.
Well, in an unprecedented move by the English monarch, a joint prayer was done with the Pope. Really, that's true. Yes, it happened. And could this lead to other negotiations, possibly towards reconciliation, started by the two heads of major Christian cults, resolving their differences and reconciling? This was the first joint service prayers of the two leaders since Henry VIII split from the Catholic Church in a fit of pique for not getting the divorce annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon in 1534. So, yeah, it's been 500 years, or almost 500 years. The joint service may be the start of something interesting, as the Pope and the Anglican Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the monarch is the head of the Anglican Church, but the Archbishop is the head of the priesthood.
Does all the heavy lifting.
He does all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You can't have King Charles do that.
Right.
They led the service together, one in Latin and one in English. Also, the not to be outdone Sistine Chapel Choir and two royal choirs. So I guess King Charles needed to one up the Sistine.
A little bit
Chapel
of holy
choir.
dick waving going on is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sounds like a buy one, get two free.
Yeah, buy one, get two free. Yeah. So that was what that was. And this is from Reuters by Joshua McElligey on October 23rd, 2025. And what do you think?
All right. Well, Jonathan, I want to ask you, how do you think that this change is viewed from within? Give us the view from within the religions. What could this mean from their perspective? What's the view from the inside on this?
Well, I think there could be. I don't know exactly, because I'm neither an Anglican nor am I a Catholic. And nor do I have a background in either one of them. I could ask my cousin, but. Yeah, all my cousins.
Did you do that? We'll just wait here. Why don't you go ahead and ask your cousin?
Let me call my cousin. She can tell me because she worked in the Catholic Church her whole life.
Well, just from what you know about the two religions, what do you think? What do you think is their perspective on this?
I kind of wonder what the Archbishop Cottrell was thinking, and Pope Leo was thinking as they participated in the service, Mass, quote unquote Mass. Really thought about this. I imagine the Pope saying, it's about time 5 centuries after they split from the real church. And I can imagine the Archbishop saying something like, silly, this whole affair. Our rituals are nearly identical, but the point of contention are silly. And ever happy to appease the king, though. So it's like, it's just that the churches, they've been talking, remotely kind of feeling this out for a century or so, saying, hey, King Henry's dead, the marriage is moot point, maybe we can get on,
Right.
Of course, the Pope is thinking, all these new members of the Catholic Church, we've been bleeding people a lot lately. So the 45 million Anglicans added to the church would be nice. The Anglicans thinking in the same way, they'd have all the resources of the Catholic Church instead of just the rather sparse in comparison resources of the Anglican. It's not a church; they call it convention or something. The Anglican something. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't slips my mind.
I thought it was called the Church of England. Is that kind of a nickname?
Well, it is the Church of England, or the Anglican. Angle meaning, of course, English. Mm-hmm. Anglo-Saxon angle, but the British Church. I just think that the whole reason for the split was really just a fit of pique on a monarch who was a lot like, he was just a narcissistic, power mad, syphilitic individual.
So do you think they thought it was like a silly break? Do you think they were just being are being like stubborn and just none of them are, I'm not going to say I'm sorry. Well, are you going to say I'm sorry and that kind of thing? Or
No, I just think that they're so used to being adversaries at this point that, in history, all the Protestant denominations, including this one, and the Catholics had a very nasty relationship from the outset since Martin Luther and then Henry VIII. And the persecution on both sides was pretty drastic. Heretics on one side or heretics on the other side. They were both considered heretics. They burned heretics at the stake. That was the punishment, to purify their spirits, right? So pretty painful way to go. And they did this to thousands and thousands of people. In England, they had to eventually, I think there was an area in England that quietly Catholics could live in peace. But they couldn't speak up. They couldn't do anything. They had no power. But they could at least go to this area and sort of not be oppressed by the crown. Sort of like a little region that the king said, leave them alone, Right.
Jonathan, I'm sorry to interrupt you here. Let's put a pin on that because I think we're straying a little bit from my original question, and I want to get Flabbergasted's perspective on this, and then we can come back to what you're talking about here. Flabbergasted, Jonathan was kind of giving us his perspective on what it looks like from the inside there. What do you think it looks like from the outside? How do you think how does this change the perception of the world in general on these two religions at all?
I don't know, like. I don't know if you know this, but I'm an atheist. So my first reaction to this title was,
hey, me too.
Who cares?
Right.
Who cares? Like in his intro, Jonathan mentioned maybe it'll bring new negotiations. What negotiations? Are they just going to sit down and have tea and talk about how much wealth they've extracted from the poor and middle classes? What exactly are they going to negotiate? They gave each other honorary titles in different versions of their same made-up fairy tale, and they called it an historic event.
Yeah, special names. Yeah. And they gave Charles a special chair. I thought it was the funniest line in that whole thing. He got a special chair at one of their, at the Basilica outside the walls or something like that, or
outside the walls of the Vatican,
a special chair that he gets to sit in when he goes to visit.
I know, Scott. Cool? Scott, wow. I used to be a teacher. You're a teacher. We both know that the person who gets a special chair is never a good thing. You never want to be in the special chair. That's always, but at the end of the day, no, it's all just platitudes and fancy words. There's no action on major issues. They're not talking about any of the things plaguing the world today. It's not like they sat down and had this deep prayer and talk conversation about fixing things. They didn't talk about how they're going to use their ridiculous hordes of wealth to improve the world or improve the lives of their followers. This is just pure symbolism, but symbolism only works in a valid way when it doesn't stop at just being a picture, right? If it actually inspires and pushes the conversation forward in solving problems, then we can talk about how that symbolism is actually relevant and valuable. But at the end of the day, what problem does this solve? This meeting of prayers, what solution does this offer to the people of the world or of their faiths? None.
Really know though. We don't know what they talked about. That's the thing. And the thing is, there is a lot to negotiate if they're going to join the two churches. There's doctrinal things. There's okay, well, what about this part of the ritual that has changed on one side or the other? What about land? Catholic Church is the largest landowner in the world. How are we supposed to? Do we get some of that? Do you get all our land?
So do you think that was part of the goal? Do you think the goal is to have some kind of holy merger happening here or something? Or
I think that they're looking to the future for that, but I think that they want to get the conversation rolling. And we don't know what they talked about. We just don't know. Do I think that they were talking about constructively doing anything for real people? No, of course not. Could they be talking about they're not talking about getting rid of the Catholic wealth. It's the wealthiest church in the world. So it's it has more money than they're supposed to.
I'm very skeptical of that idea, though, that there's even a conversation of these two churches merging, because at the end of the day, even if the organizations were okay with it, there's so much vitriol between the two like following groups that's never going to happen. Like I genuinely don't think it is a realistic outcome. I find that to be, it's an interesting thought. Like, ooh, what would happen if they did that? But I also don't think that this meetup is even significant enough to even kind of go down that line of thinking. Like it certainly seems like a symbolistic kind of like, oh, look, we're buddy now. Oh, look, we're going to be friends again. We're going to put the whole 500 years of conflict behind our backs when your ancestor decided that he wanted 5 divorces and we wouldn't give him them, like
that's a great point. I mean, there's a long history of violent opposition happening here. And so if we look at it from that perspective, do you think they're trying to put like a facade over this? Do you think they're trying to whitewash this history? Or do you think they're trying to make legitimate moves in the direction of bringing people together here?
Who knows? But we all know how religions work, and they never, when they're trying to do things like increase their wealth, increase their power over people, they're capable of doing all sorts of underhanded and dirty tricks. So we don't know what's going on. There could be a whole plot on either side to get at the laity of the other side. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a sect of Catholic priests, not the Jesuits, but Opus Dei or something like this, that are working on grabbing all of the Anglicans, except for the ones who are trying to split off from the Anglican Church and form their own church, which they've had a thing on female priests that was problematic for their congregations. So the more conservative ones are saying, we're not going to deal with this. That's a whole nother article, But yeah, I think churches, they work in very devious ways. They say mysterious.
So Jonathan, do you think that each of the two churches is trying to absorb the other one into them, trying to assimilate?
I think they're trying to take advantage of each other in some way, form. We have no idea of knowing why or what or who.
Obviously, this is all conjecture here. We're all just kind of throwing out our thoughts
but
here.
If you're asking me, I think there's probably something underhanded going on here, and it's probably on both sides. So they're probably scheming against each other, which makes me laugh. I mean, as an atheist, it just makes me say, "Oh, they're at it again."
Right.
That's it.
Flabbergasted, what do you think about that? Do you agree with Jonathan? Do you think that there's some underhanded manipulation happening here, or do you think they're trying to legitimately bring humanity back together again, or do you think it's just pomp and circumstance? I mean, you mentioned symbolism and how symbolism, and by the way, I love that quote that you said. That's my favorite thing that was said all evening. But that symbolism by itself is vacuous, right? It's impotent, and it's until you make that symbolism represent something real. You can build on that symbolism and do something. Do you think that's what they're trying to do, or do you think they just want to get the symbolism out there as a PR stunt?
Yeah, I think it's pomp and circumstance, just so they could say they did something to heal the divide, and then they can wash their hands of any further conflicts between the followers. They're like, "Well, we made up. You guys should just be nice to each other now," even without actually addressing the centuries and the millennia of of conflict and tension between Protestants and Catholics, especially in Europe and especially in the UK. But ultimately, I don't think there's anything more nefarious between their meeting than the nefarious, the inherent nefarious nature of any two heads of state meeting, right? We don't look at when you have a president meeting with a foreign prime minister, and they're just having a conversation about stuff, and they're talking about politics and the world at large. That's something that's generally an acceptable thing. We don't sit there and be like, "Oh, what are they scheming?" Right? And so what we see here is kind of, I think, the same thing. And we might think about what are they scheming, but it's not like this. We're not all sitting here waiting with bated breath for the other boot to drop every time two heads of state meet. And I think it's just that, plus they're doing some religious ceremony tied to it. And the religious ceremony definitely adds some stuff to it. But again, it's all pomp and circumstance, like most religious ceremonies tend to be. And you know, that's kind of how I see it. I feel like speculating beyond that with this little of a situation is I hate to say it, but nigh conspiratorial thinking.
Okay.
My experience with large religious institutions is that conspiratorial thinking is something that you should probably look into. Again, we have no inside track to any of that, but my experience with large religious groups is that there usually is some undercurrent going on, but it's nothing that's earth-shaking. It's nothing that's going to really matter to the rest of the world. It's just
so you're saying there is something going on, but it's the same kind of thing that's been going on for generations.
Ever generations.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know who's involved or what it is, but I can guarantee you there's something going on. This was an outward expression of, see, look at this. There's nothing going on. To me, that kind of tweaks my interest. Is there any real evidence? No. And until we get more information, there's no reason that we should even speculate on it. But we have the article, we speculate. But it's also, you know, that you are absolutely right, Flabbergasted. It's pomp and circumstance. It's making the statement. It's getting it out there. The idea is now the genie's out of the bottle. The two people prayed together. Okay. Does that matter to me or you? No. Does that matter to world politics? Not at all. You know, so is this important to anybody but Anglicans and Catholics? Not at all. It's just not a thing. You know, this is
probably not even
us.
that. I'd argue it's probably not even that important to most Anglicans and to the rank and file, right? You know, they don't give a fuck what's going on here. Yeah.
It's sort of like the third page of the Sunday paper. Oh, look, they prayed together. Next.
That's exactly what it is. It's.
So we've looked at it from this from a point of view of these two nations, and I suppose the Vatican technically is a nation. I think that's a ridiculous thing, but anyway, so we have two heads of state, quote unquote, interacting, and we also looked at it from the perspective of these two religions. But let's look at it from, there's a third option here, and Jonathan, you touched on it a little bit, that of being a business decision, a prudent business decision, I might add. Here we have two groups, two branches of Christianity that have been hemorrhaging members for years, right? And so they're becoming less and less relevant to the world. Do you think that part of this, part of the pomp and circumstance that here, and we'll start with Jonathan on this first, do you think this is like a merger kind of? We have these two sinking companies and they think, oh, hey, let's join forces and then we can regain that market share and become relevant in the world again. Do you think it's merely a bottom line business decision? Do you think that could be part of it at least?
I think that it might be too early in that to make that judgment. But the thing is that it might be in the back of the minds of the two pontiffs. But I think that it might be a fleeting idea at this point, just another thing in the background that doesn't really become a factor until somebody starts putting it into the equation, right? But it's interesting to think about. But let's put it this way: all religions are hemorrhaging people,
right? Not
just them,
right?
So it may not just be irrelevant because everybody's having it happen. So they're not going to operate as a group because they've been enemies for so long to solve that issue. They want to solve that issue individually for each religion. Even Buddhists are losing people, so it's like, why? Well, the internet, I guess, the information available, is.
So do you think it's maybe the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing? I mean, do you think it's possibly just they're coming together out of necessity?
I think that's another thing that is just unknown at this point. I don't think they can get over their animosity that quickly. At least the laity can't, right? I mean, I think that, it's going to be a long haul and a slow evolutionary process if they want to get back together. They may not even want to. As I said, it might be they did this for the show to try and smooth things over politically so that they can maybe meet some goals that they haven't stated what they are yet.
Okay.
So.
All right. Flabbergasted, I'm going to throw the last question to you here. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think there's going to be any effect? Do you think there's going to be any change in any way to the world, or do you think that this is going to continue? Or give us a little peek into the future here.
I mean, if they're doing this, then what they're saying is that they're no longer going to be religious rivals anymore. That's kind of, I think, the most I can really take out of it. They're saying, hey, we're no longer going to be religious rivals. We're going to be religious friends.
Okay.
And I think we're going to see more, I think more pomp and circumstance on occasion, like when we see when the Pope visits the UK, right? It'll be just a little bit extra to the pomp. They'll add the religion to the pomp and circumstance. Right. They'll pray together now. When the king goes to the Vatican, then they'll pray together again. They'll go to their little special seats. I don't think it's going to do anything meaningful, right? I don't think they're going to do anything like they could have used this to do something meaningful. And that they really could have. They could have used this to make a statement about something. They could have used this to comment on something, even if it's, again, just the animosity that they're the followers of those two religions tend to have against each other. And I think that's kind of the key thing I really take out of the story is that the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church, the Anglican Church, have been at each other's throats, and not necessarily the organizations themselves in the recent years, but the people have. When I was growing up, there were literal terrorist attacks against each other, the murdering of people in the UK over their religious beliefs, and this was Protestants versus Catholics, and that was a time when the monarch of England, the head of the English church, and the Pope could have come together and said, no, we are united. We are not enemies. But
that would have been a much stronger statement. Yeah,
that would have been an amazing statement. That would have been powerful in that moment. But now that would have been an example of leading from the front. But this is an example of leading from behind. Right. The Catholic Church and the Protestant Church do not have the tension they used to have. Most of the animosity is in Discord argument rooms, more so than it is in any meaningful like negative impact in society. And now that things are like softer and gentler and they're not going to face big blowback, now they can be buddy again. Now they can come in and say, oh, no, we're friends.
They could have used that moment, though, for something else. They could have made a comment on Gaza, could have made a comment on all sorts of things. Africa, where they both had a huge interest. They could have the Congo. They could have said something 100%. That would have really made an impact on people in those countries that would say they are thinking about us. They don't like what's happening to us. Let's change it. That could have been the impetus for a lot of positive things, but they didn't use it for that. They used it to kiss each other's cheek, and walk off.
Give each other special chairs. I think what Jonathan said is really true. This really could have been a historic and impressive moment in time. They could have talked about anything, and they didn't. And instead, it's, as Jonathan said, the third page on the Sunday paper.
Right. Yeah. So opportunity lost, basically, is what we're gathering here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I had a lot of fun talking to both of you on our special Halloween edition of the Nonprofits this week. So if you enjoyed the show, please let us know. You can like or subscribe down below. And if you want to see more of us, then click on one of these links.